All right, so I want to talk about a very famous hadith that I'm sure everyone kind of heard before at some point in their life. And it's about the five befores and five afters, right? Your youth before your old age, your health before illness, your wealth before poverty, your free time before being busy, and then your life before death, right? And I don't need to go into examples for all five. I'm sure everyone can figure out an example. I can understand these things. Everyone's young at some point, and then eventually, if you live long enough, you get old. Everyone's has health, unless you're born with a chronic illness, even then, there's the stages of illness that can progress, right? Everyone has wealth or money in some form. Even if you're born into a poor family, you might have some sort of like a minor amount of wealth. You might have something. Even that something can be taken away. And then your free time, whether it's the beginning of the day that you're free and then the end of the day you're busy, that can apply to any, or it could be you're free in your youth and you're busy as you get older. The time that can be applied to anything. And then everyone living will die, so that's number 5, right? The point of this is to take advantage of this and why to apply it in the sense that make it beneficial. Everything that you do has to be of benefit. And when you get old, it's going to be harder to do the things when you're young, the same things that you're capable of when you're younger. And when you're sick, it's harder to do things that you're capable of when you're healthy. When you're impoverished, it's harder to care about the same things than when you have money. Same thing when you're busy, it's harder to care about things than when you have free time. The same things. It's harder to get extra dhikr in and extra ibadah, extra prayers, extra, when you're constantly busy. And when you die, it's too late. So, and this correlates with another hadith about where the Prophet ﷺ said the son of Adam will not pass away from Allah until he asks him about 5 things. The 5 things are, just to summarize, how you lived your life on earth, how to utilize your youth, how you earned your wealth, spent your wealth, and then what did you do with knowledge? And so these are all accountability. And so the Prophet is telling you, he told us to take advantage of the 5 things before. Why? Because when you have the most time, when you have your health, you have money, and you're young, and you're still alive, and you're not busy, that's the time when it's very easy. It's much easier to use your life on earth, to utilize your youth and the earn money halal and spend it in something good that's to get barakah or beneficial, and to learn things and spread that knowledge that you have. It's way easier if you do everything in the before stage. Because once you get busy and once you get older and once you get sick and once you become poor, it's going to be, Allah is going to ask you, like, what did you do with all these things? How did you earn? How did you spend your life? You're like, well, I was sick and poor and tired and all this and that. And you weren't sick and you weren't poor and you weren't old your whole life. What did you do when you weren't sick, poor, and old? You know what I mean? And when you had knowledge, when knowledge came to you, what did you do with that knowledge? Did you apply it? Did you share it? So it's all about accountability when it comes to the questioning. And you start thinking about it, like, even when you get to those stages where it's like hard to do things, there was a before, unless you were unless you're born chronically ill with a chronic illness, like I said, but nonetheless, there's still like a before for most of these things, right? So take advantage of that. And another thing that I was thinking about, the reason why this kind of really got into my head recently was, I have a lot of goals myself personally, like with money and fitness and just career goals and, things that I like to do, material things. And I kind of started thinking about these things like what in the end of the day, if I spend so many hours into these things, where does it get me? And even if I got success, if I got my dream physique from fitness, from working out and health, and I got my my dream job, and like from pursuing my goals and my career and stuff, and I got my, everything starts working out. What benefit do these things actually have when it comes to my eventually to fit the most important thing, my death? So once I die, then what? How would any of these things benefit me? And there's an ayah in the Quran, Allah talks about what the people of Jahannam, of hellfire, will say when they, they reflect back on their life. One of the quotes is that they'll say, "My wealth has not benefited me." Their money hasn't benefited them. Why? Because they didn't use it. And that's one of the 5 questions that Allah asks you. How did you earn your wealth? And then, actually, it's 2 of them. How did you spend it? And if you're saying, well, if you're in a situation where you're like, well, this has not benefited me after death, that means you did something haram with that money, or you didn't do anything good at all with the money. Because being complacent, even if it's a halal job and you just like take, and you still pile sins, you just like didn't use it to help you at all, just kind of like whatever. So it's something to think about. Like, if I get into good shape, I spend hours in the gym, dieting, planning, thinking about this, and then like, dang near builder levels of like effort. And then what did I do with this wealth, this physical health? Am I going to go and help people who need it? Am I going to go fight against injustice, or am I going to stand up and pray late? Am I going to do something with this strength that I have that's actually going to benefit me in Akhirah? Or am I just going to pose and flex in the mirror and post it on Instagram and look good? That's something I feel like, I think a lot of these influencers and people need to consider, if they care, they probably won't if they don't care. But if you ever become something like that, and you fear Allah, and you think you're God conscious, to think about how does it look? How does it affect you? What true benefit does it have if it's just for material gain? That's just my thoughts, and I was thinking about this deeply because I was actually getting kind of, there's a period where I get kind of caught up in the whole like, well, I'm on this mode, I'm into this, I'm just gonna lock in and focus on this one aspect of my life, and then I'm like, well, it takes a few seconds to purify my intentions, and actually say, well, I'm gonna make my intention to get strong so that I can use this strength to go fight against evil, to go help an old lady across the street, to go give sadaqah. I'm gonna make this money to give sadaqah. I'm gonna make this money. I'm gonna get stronger so I can, be able to protect my family. I'm going to stay up late and study so I can get this good job, so that I can use this money to benefit my family, the ummah, someone, encourage people. I'm going to use my platform to speak about something good. I'm going to use my free time to learn something that will be beneficial about my deen or about the world, that I can actually have an input in, an impact. Because you're not just a cog in a machine, as much as people would like you to believe that. Like, your life is not meant to just be, you're not just supposed to hoard your money, and your energy is supposed to be spent, and you're supposed to work on something. You're supposed to be a part of something bigger than yourself. That's your purpose. That's how you find your purpose. You're not supposed to just sit in the corner of the earth and just, live endlessly. Otherwise, if you are, you're just taking up space. Your purpose is not to just consume. You're supposed to produce. That's what you have is, you're supposed to produce something good. You're supposed to, and follow Allah's law. Establish God's law on earth, in some kind of way. So, or at least work towards that goal, or at least work towards understanding what that means, or at least work towards benefiting yourself in the afterlife. That's the biggest thing. So, and that answers pretty much how was one's lived their life on earth. The question that Allah asks you, how have you lived your life on earth? That kind of encompasses all of that. That encompasses your youth, your wealth and knowledge, and How did you live your life overall? What kind of person were you? You know what I mean? So that's just something to consider. It's something I'm trying to consider more. It's part of being God conscious. It's part of having tawakkul, and it's a ever work in progress. Like if you ever feel like, well, it's hard to think like that constantly. It's hard to be on my P's and Q's about these things. It's hard for everyone, and you're not alone. And I'm not saying this as a person who believes that they're high and mighty and thinks that they got it all figured out. I'm not a self-righteous person whatsoever. But I can read, and I read that hadith, and that's pretty clear, clear cut. And it's a pretty good reminder. So, but yeah. So anyway, subhanakallahumma, until next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.